The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome everyone to our webinar. A few items of housekeeping as we begin. We are on GoToWebinar, which offers a few options for you to interact throughout the webinar session. You're able to raise your hand. You are able to type into the chat bar, either to the panelists or everyone, and you're able to send questions through the questions module. You can use any of these features at any time throughout the webinar, and we will attempt to answer your questions as we go or at set intervals when we collect questions or at the end for our final question session. This session is being recorded and will be posted for later viewing. If you have any technical difficulties throughout, please use the chat. With that being said, I'll turn it over to Tara to begin.
Thank you, Zach. Hello, TPP grantees. I'm Tara Rice from the Division of Research and Evaluation at OPA, and I'm the lead for the Adolescent Health Performance Measures. Today, we're holding a webinar mainly as a refresher for you as TPP 23 grantees on reporting data using the online database. We'll focus particularly on demonstrating how you set up your sections and report your program level data. This webinar will also review the new system dashboards that are in the system. So just to give you a little bit of a taste of what we'll be doing during the next hour, and I'll now turn the presentation back over to Zach from the OAHPM data support team.
Thank you so much. So like she said, a lot of this is going to be review. We'll go a little bit slower once we get to the system demo. But if you have any questions, please, again, feel free to enter those into the chat, raise your hand, etc., and we'll do our best to get to those as they come up. So I already mentioned the logistics for GoToWebinar. Again, our overview of our agenda, we're going to review the performance measures and then head straight into using the website, getting that set up, and then actually submitting those data. We'll just do a quick inventory of the different website features, and then I'll turn it over to our colleagues at Mathematica to give us a little demonstration of our new dashboard feature. At the end, we'll have open time for questions, but again, please submit your questions throughout if you have any as we go. So there are two types of users in our performance measures system. We have grantee administrators. So this would be maybe the project director or the designated data entry person. They're responsible for ensuring the data entry for the grantee data and as all the data for your grantee. We recommend having at least 2 of these grantee administrators per your organization, and they can complete all levels of data entry without any permission issues. The second type of user that we have is the implementing organization only users. And this is any user who only needs to be able to report program implementation data, such as the attendance reach, etc., for your participants, your implemented programming, as well for the supportive services referrals that that implementing organization makes. So for some of you, you might only have one organization that's actually implementing programming, and it might be the grantee itself, whereas other grantees might have multiple separate organizations implementing programming, so they would be reporting separately. There are these 2 levels of data, and they're specific to each cohort and tier, but for the main overview, we have our grantee level data. This is stuff about your sustainability, fidelity, and training in TPP and other matters, your engagement with stakeholders, and your dissemination of information through presentations or publications. That's going to be reported every 6 months into the website. One data entry per grantee, grant number. The other level we have is the organization level data. So at the implementing organization level, they are implementing programming and reporting section level data or section data, which is that participation, attendance, reach, and dosage data, as well as fidelity and quality for any sessions that were observed. And then also for that implementing organization, if they made any supportive services referrals, you'll also note the number by what type of referral was made. few of the relevant terms, we have section. This is the kind of full implementation of the program model. So if there's only one session or if there's multiple meetings, all of those together would be considered a section. So the example here we have is something like Miss Smith's fourth period health class meets a few times. That would be a complete section once all the activities have been completed. You want to give each section a unique name for identification purposes. A session would be one meeting within a section. So if the program model calls for 3 meetings, or if it only calls for 1 meeting, those meetings would be sessions. Those sessions might be observed. And we're going to do things like report the number of sessions that we plan to implement, how many we actually completed, and then the number of those that were observed, if any. Okay. Are there any programs about the performance measures? Any questions about the performance measures in particular before we move on to the actual data entry part of the website and getting all that set up? Okay, I do see one question, but I do believe we'll answer it during the walkthrough, so we'll save that as we go, and we'll continue forward. So if you haven't done so already, when you are first getting onto the website as a grantee administrator with a user account, you'll want to do a few things. You'll want to make sure that your grantee primary contact information is correct. That's going to be in the edit button that I'll show you. And then we're going to want to add our implementing organizations. So we'll create those organizations, whether it's just your own grantee or if you have several. Once you've created those organizations, there's 2 more steps. You'll need to assign the program models that those organizations will be implementing. So there'll be a button to add program model, and you'll list the program models that that organization is actually going to be implementing. And then finally, you'll assign users to that implementing organization to enter data for that organization, the section data and the services referrals. In this area is where you can create a user who is only allowed to enter that section level data for that particular implementing organization. By when you go click to add a user, you can enter their email address. And if they don't already exist in the system, then they will be added to the system with a new user account. However, that account will only have access to that implementing organization's area for section data and service referrals. And you'll have to add them either to other implementing organizations, or if you want them to be able to enter grantee data, you'll need to contact the help desk to have their permissions upgraded. So again, our grantee data will have a few tabs that we'll need to fill out. We have sustainability, fidelity and training, engagement, and dissemination. And for our section data, we have a 2-step process. You're going to create the section within a reporting period and for a particular program model. You'll click the Add Section button. You'll give it a name, the state, the setting, and the urbanicity. So the name plus those other 4 items, the state, the setting, and the urbanicity with the program model will kind of identify that one particular section. And then you'll go in to edit the section data and add your data about youth participant attendance, caregiver and professional attendance, the dosage rates, and the fidelity and quality scores. And again, we'll take a look at all of those as we go through the demo. Speaking of which, so we'll go ahead and transition to taking a look at the website here. So here we are on the landing homepage. This is the test website, so you'll see we're missing some of our regular announcements that we usually have. But if I click on the grantees link in the navigation bar, it's going to take me to this landing page here. We'll have all the grantees that my account is associated with listed. If you don't have a grantees link in your navigation bar, it is because you are an organization-only user and you are not allowed to enter data at the grantee level. If you need that permission upgraded, you'll want to email the help desk with your project director and your project officer from OPA, and we can go ahead and make those permissions changes. For our example here, you can see my account is associated with a Tier 1, a Tier 2 RI, and a Tier 2 hub for TPP 23, as well as a lingering grant from the previous cohort of TPP 2020. For our TPP 2023 grants, in order to enter your grantee level data, we're going to click on this data button here in that row for that grantee. So clicking data, it'll bring us into those 4 tabs I mentioned. We'll make sure we select the correct reporting period that we're submitting our data for. Again, this is on the semi-annual reporting schedule. And you'll go through each of the fields and enter the appropriate data for each one. There are particular validations on some fields that are immediately validated. For example, you can't enter letters into fields that are just for numbers. But there are some other validations that might check as you click save. You will get those as messages at the top of the page, and it will let you know exactly what fields need to be looked at. So those are all the items for the grantee level data. The only other thing to know about this level of data is here on the edit button. This is where we'll go to make sure that our primary contact information is up to date for this grantee. And this would be the primary contact for if we see any issues with the data, we need to get a hold of somebody, whoever's going to be responsible for your grantee in terms of making sure the data is full and complete and accurate. So that's really it for the grantee level data. Next, we'll move on to the data that's at the organizational level, the section level data, and the referrals. So in order to get to that, if you're a grantee admin like we are here, we can click the organizations button. So we'll do that to get started. And here, if you see nothing listed after you click that button, you'll need to add a new implementing organization. This is as simple as giving it a name and creating it. If you're doing it as your own grantee, you can give it the name of your grantee. And if you have other organizations participating under your grantee umbrella, you'll list all those here. Once you've created that implementing organization, you'll need to go ahead and assign that organization program models. So if we click the program models button, what we'll see is this organization already has these 2 added. But if it didn't, or we needed to add more, we'll click the add program model button, and it'll give us the full list of approved program models that we can select from for your tier. If you don't see an approved program model on this list, please contact the help desk with the name of the program model and CC your PO, and we'll make sure it gets added post haste for you to select. Next, we'll take a look to finish our setup by going to the users button here on this organization. And here we can see that we already have our user at example.com added to this list directly. If, for example, we didn't, let's say we removed them from this list, when you first get here, you might see the add self button, which will easily add you as a data reporter for this organization. If you need to, as a grantee admin, if you have other fellow grantee admins, they can add themselves to this list and they'll be able to access this data regardless. But if you do want someone who can only submit section level data, this is where you will authorize them per organization to submit that data. Okay. So it looks like we have a few relevant questions here before we move on. So right now we've just talked about creating these implementing organizations, and we have a few questions. So if an organization is implementing at multiple sites, do you have to list those sites? And I think the answer would be no. We're really just looking for, unless it's somehow like 2 separate organizations, if it's the same organization, but at multiple sites, then that will simply be noted when you create your section, like what's the location of that section. But it can still go under the same umbrella. All right. Another question we have is, so the help desk adds the program model, not the implementing organization itself. And the answer here is that there are program models already listed. And let's see what we have here. Yeah, so we have a full big list here that you can select from. If you have one that is not already on this list, then yes, you'll need to contact the help desk. But pretty much all of them should already be on the list. So there are some instances where new ones or other ones are approved or added. They might not be on the website yet. If that happens, obviously contact us, but otherwise, They should all be programmed in there. And I'm hoping that answers the first question that we got earlier in the session about not being able to see some of these items. We have to make sure that we create our implementing organizations and that we've added the program models to those organizations before we begin and are able to enter section level data. Okay, so let's move forward with looking at how we can submit that section level data. So we'll go ahead and click the sections button. And here we're going to select the reporting period, which is going to be an annual reporting period, although you'll want to update kind of your data halfway through the year at 6 months. And then we'll select our program model. Let's see. There we go. So as you can see, depending on what selections we make, it shows us the list of sections associated with those items. So by reporting period and program model. Once we've selected those, we can add a section. So if in this reporting period we ran a Aim for Teen Moms program model, we're going to add our section here. We're going to give our example section a name, select a state, a setting, and an urbanicity. So again, a section is going to be that discrete group that meets one or more times to complete the program model. So we have a question here that should each setting be a separate section? And unless you're doing some kind of aggregate internet section, then each separate section would probably be a separate group you would be reporting on. If there's some more details about that question you have, we can get more specific to answer this one for that particular one. Once we've given our section our unique name and selected these 3 criteria here, you'll click Save. You'll see that new section created. It'll have the actual name you gave it. And the next step we'll need to take is click Edit Section Data. Here is where we actually enter that attendance data. So we'll enter our total youth reach, which for example might be something like 100. And then we'll need to distinguish that by several categories of demographics. So for example, we have sex, gender, sexual orientation, race and ethnicity, and age. Oh, I'm sorry, and grade. Each of the totals at the bottom of the demographic sections are automatically totaled, but this number must equal the total youth participants, total youth reach, that you have entered at the top of the page. If it does not, when you click Save, the form will let you know. There'll be a red box up at the top, and it will say these numbers do not match. And we can get an example of that in just a moment. Same thing for our caregivers and our youth serving professionals by race and ethnicity. We'll need to make sure that this total number you provide for caregivers matches the total number here when you've divided it by race and ethnicity. I know frequently or occasionally we get questions about the particular labels or items that we have here for the race ethnicity categories. And these are the ones that are set for this particular data collection on the OMB form. So we cannot make any changes or updates for this particular data collection. As I know, sometimes that question does come up. The next tab we have here is the dosage tab. So this is going to have the average or mean attendance for that particular section. And then how many participants received at least 75% of the programming for the dosage. Finally, we're tracking fidelity and quality by tracking the number of sessions planned, completed, and observed. And if any sessions were observed, what is the score? First off, by fidelity, which is the number of activities completed over the number of activities planned. That's going to be for that observed session. For example, if you plan to have a video, a discussion, and a writing activity, did you get to all 3 in that session? So 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3, or 3 out of 3 activities completed. Usually that's based on the program model. It might have some kind of handbook or, say like in session 1, do X, Y, Z. Finally, we have the observer reported quality. You'll use the quality score sheet that has the 7 items on it that are rated from 1 through 5 and then assign a final score. you're only reporting that final score for the overall quality. And if you observed multiple sessions of a section, you'll average those scores together to provide us a number between 1 and 5 with up to 2 decimal places. So you can do 1.12 or hopefully something more like 4.55 or something as a positive score. One of the questions we have here is if you're reporting data for January 1st to June 30th, just the last 6 months, the slides show 1 full year. So there are technically two reporting periods. There's the grantee level data, which is reported on a semi-annual reporting period. So every 6 months, you need to complete a new grantee data entry. However, the section level data is kind of tracked throughout the year. I think best practice would be as you complete sections, unless you have a lot of them, you should enter those sections in. So if in March you complete a section, you can go ahead and start adding that section data in to this full annual reporting period. When you go to enter your grantee data at the 6-month mark on this annual period, that grantee level data that you have to report every 6 months, you should definitely report any sections that have finished for this current annual period. So if it finished, you can report that section data. You don't have to wait till the end. Okay, it looks like we've answered that question. If you have previously entered data, when you go in to enter data now, will the prior data show up? Yes, it will. It should be right where you left it if you select that reporting period and that program model. Or for the grantee level data, it will all still be in there. You'll also see, and we'll talk about this a bit more later, but we have extracts, we have reports and dashboards that will contain all the information that you've submitted previously. Here we have a question about the definition of ungraded. If they don't fit into any of the other categories, then I think ungraded would be where it goes. I don't have a better description. I'm not sure if someone from OPA would be able to provide us more clarity. If not, we can certainly bring in a project officer, email them at some point. Go ahead.
Hey, Zach, this is Tara. Yes, you're right. There are programs and examples where someone might not formally be in a grade at their school. It's not a common situation, so it probably doesn't apply in most cases. But we added that because there were instances where people had students who weren't in a particular grade, but they were in a school program.
Okay. So we have a question. Can you repeat what you said about rounding up the observation number, full number of we can use decimals? So if we go to end section data, we take a look at the fidelity and quality. The number of sessions or lessons planned, completed, and observed should all be whole numbers. If you count it as being observed, it's a 1. If you only observed half of it, does that count? Does that count as a full observation or not? If you're really concerned about the nuances, you can have a conversation with your PO. But we're assuming you were able to give a full report on the fidelity and quality of that session that you observed. Since sections might consist of something like 5 class meetings or sessions, if you observe 2 of those sessions and you get a score of a 5 and a 4, then you'll want to average those scores to a 4.5 to report here. And I believe you can do up to 2 decimal places here. So if your average score, you round it to the 100th place, if you will. Oh, if you want to respond, I think you might need to use the chat feature. I'm not sure if the actual questions pod publishes any responses. So thank you for the helpful responses as questions, but I'm not sure if anyone else can see those. But thank you. All right. So that is kind of the manual data entry process for the grantee data and the section data. The last thing that I'm going to go over with you now is going to be how to import section level data. So if you have, let's say, 100 implemented sections, and you're looking at this process of saying, oh my gosh, I have to click and type for every single one of these. It's going to take forever. or not be practical, we have a different solution. So on the website, you'll be able to go to the resources section and find the folder that will allow you to download our importing template. I will show you what that looks like. So we'll go ahead and take a look real quick. The template for uploading your data will come as a CSV download, and it will only have the column names. And it is very important that your CSV contain these column names and only these column names spelled exactly this way and in this order. One other thing to look out for is you cannot have any extra columns over to the right-hand side. So this is a very long spreadsheet here because there are many fields. But if you have any extra columns, even if it's somehow just like a space or a blank or a dot, that will mess things up as well. So we can only fill data under the columns that we are supposed to have. Coming back to the front here, when you have your data all entered, you'll see that the sections or the columns line up with the different fields or items that each section has, right? So you'll need your grant number, but then the name of the implementing organization, the program model, a unique name for the section, as well as those identifiers. And then you'll lay out each of the numerical things for the participants, the different demographics, which is why this gets so long, race, ethnicity graphics for both caregivers, youth serving professionals, and your youth participants. And then finally at the end, those like quality and fidelity measures for each section. There is a full, along with the import template that is CSV, there is a full data dictionary, data table that lays out the specifics and validation rules for each one of these columns to be very clear about like what needs to be entered and if there are any issues, what those might be. This is, for those asking, this is currently available for download on the live website in the resources section. You can click that resources link in our navigation bar, and you will be able to select the folder that contains the section level data upload and the user guide and things like that. Unfortunately, the folders are not correctly set up on the test website at the moment, or I'd show you the name of that folder. So now that we have our data entered in, and let's say, let's pretend we had like 100 sections, however many, what we're going to do is we're going to head back to the website. I'm actually going to take just a moment and upload. So after we've clicked our imports link in the navigation bar, you'll see we have some options here. If you're associated with the 2020 grant, you'll see these previous ones, but the 2023 one is what we're looking for. We're going to click the upload button. And one nice thing about this is that we are able to, we're able to drag and drop our files or select them through the file select button. So I'm going to grab my file for drag and drop. I'm just going to plop it right here. All right, we'll make sure we close the files then. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. Doesn't want to let me drag and drop that way. So we'll drag and we'll drop. There we go. New discovery I haven't discovered before. Please make sure when you drag and drop it, you drop it on the button, or else it seems to just want to open it. So apologies for that. You can see here that we've now selected our file. We make sure we have the correct tier and reporting period that we want to upload this data for. So we'll select here and we'll click upload. So once you've uploaded your data, the number one thing you need to do is take a look at the status and see if it's success or errors. If you do see that error status, then your upload has not been completed. What you'll need to do is click on the errors button to view the report. Here, you can see that we have a few identifiers about what this was submitted for and an error count. So we have 3 errors. So the first one is a section name is required, field is required. Looks like we're missing something there. Here, the sum of youth participant counts by sex is not equal to the total participants. So we'll need to look in those columns that indicate that. And then finally, on line 8, we have something wrong with the program model. This is not a valid program model name. So what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and open up a very similar version of the file that we just saw. And we'll see where we can make some corrections. So here we'll open this one first. Our first issue here is that we were missing on the third data line a section name. And as you can see here, we have a blank one. So we're just going to fill this in with a unique section name. Of course, if you do find you have missing or incorrect data, you'll want to go back to your original data source to make sure that whatever your corrections you're making are correct and not just erroneous to get it to submit. Next, we'll see that we tried to shorthand to the name of this program model, but that does not work. It must match it as it is in the system. So we'll make sure that we make that correction as well. And finally, we knew that there's something wrong with these demographics for the youth count by sex. It doesn't add up. So here we see this is 100, and we only have 98 and 1, so we need at least one more. And going back to check my data, I can see that 1 does indeed belong here in this column. So now we've made those 3 corrections, we can go ahead and try and re-upload our file. So we'll close all of these. We're going to head back to our imports page, select the 2023 section data upload, and grab our corrected file. We'll do the upload, and we'll check the status, and we'll see that finally we have a status of success, and all of that section data will now be entered into the system. So indeed, if we do go to, let's say, for It's Your Game, Keep It Real, for what we just submitted, we can go to Organizations, Sections, and where did we submit this? Here we are. This is the reporting period for which we just submitted, and as you can see, we have those items listed here. And if we switch to the Aim for Teen Moms, we'll see the rest of the items we uploaded. If we went into the section, we'll see all the data that we've entered. Oh, this was the one we corrected even, so you can see how that has been entered in here correctly as well. So that's how you go about uploading your section level data. Again, you'll obtain that template and the instructions by clicking on the Resources button and selecting the correct resource folder, and then you can download that CSV and the PDF with instructions. Next, you'll fill your data in following those data validation rules. You can click the Imports button in the navigation bar and select Upload next to your 2023 section data. Check that your tier and reporting period are correct, and then select your file to upload and click Upload. With the most important thing being that after you upload, you make sure to check that status line for the word success. If it says errors, we're going to read that error report, make any necessary corrections, and re-upload until we're able to get success. And if you have any trouble or you have something like a processing error that won't let you go further, you can please contact the help desk and we'll figure out what's going on and walk you through all of that. All right. We'll head back now to see if there are any questions. Let's see, we have a few questions about where we can find the template. Is this available for download? Yes, it is in the resources section. If we are on multiple TPP projects and are using this template, should we report all projects in one document? So you can. Anything that your account has access to on the grantees page. So for example, if I wanted to, I could upload section level data for the example grantee here, that's a tier 1, and the example grantee that's a tier 2 RI. I would be able to, in my spreadsheet here, we could start typing in that grant number for that other one that I have access to, make sure we identify the correct organizations that already exist, give it the assigned program models it's supposed to have, and just complete filling out all the data. Then, since as the user I currently am, I have permissions for both of those, I will be able to go and upload the data for both of those at the same time. Yes. You may want to keep them separate just for like accounting purposes or to, whoever's entering what, but you're welcome to combine them as well for uploading purposes. If you re-upload data after you upload data, what happens is that for those sections, if you give it the same name in the same reporting period and program model, like we re-uploaded this one for ST1-6, it will overwrite the previous data for ST1-6 for this reporting period and program model. So just be aware that if you re-upload more than once, you'll just be correcting whatever it is for that particular section. And if you need to like make a manual tweak that's separate from your upload, you can also go into the edit section data and edit it manually, even if you've uploaded it. Okay, if your implementing organization is delivering multiple program models, sections can be entered specifically under those models, correct? We would just use the drop-down option of the program and create sections for that model. Am I understanding that right? Yes, so if you're implementing multiple program models, what you'll do is, if you're doing it manually, you'll make sure you select the reporting period that we're currently in. So you're probably reporting data for this one. And then you'll select the program model. And then you can add section and start creating those sections to enter the data into. The last question that we have here so far is there a recommended section naming convention? And there is not currently. I would do it so that you can identify those sections and that they're unique. So like Summer Barden 4, like the season, the teacher, the period, any way that makes sense to you. So if you need to re-identify that section, you can go back and be like, okay, it lines up with this one, whatever would be easiest for you to sort those out. Okay, I think that wraps up most of the questions that I'm seeing. I haven't seen any other ones that cover any other items. If you do have any questions about this process, the data entry, data upload for the imports part, as you're going, please make sure you contact the help desk, and we'll be sure to respond as soon as we can. It looks like we have one final question that I'll answer before we move on here. And it's one, how do we count participants if their session attendance spans different sections for the same program? A participant attended one session in a section but didn't complete the program, so they attended the rest of the program as part of another section. So currently, with the way that we are doing the data reporting, we are tracking the sections, not the individuals. So if this individual attended one session in an earlier section, then that section would most likely record that person as attending one session and missing all the rest of those sessions, and that would be ended. Then when you report the data for the other section, you would say that maybe this person missed the first session, but completed all the other sessions for that section. If you wanted to do something different, like combine that person and let's pretend that they attended session 1 and 2 in that first section, and then like 3, 4, 5, 6 in the next section, so you want to consider them as complete, you can maybe have a conversation with your PO officer about recording that individual only in the second session and just like giving them credit for those previous sessions. But that would be kind of a discussion you want to have with your project officer, how you would actually sort that out if that's appropriate. Okay. Some final things as we're going on. Again, there's the resources link up here that where we store the user guide as well as those items for the import, the CSV, and the instructions there. There's the extracts, so you can download a zip file that has a bunch of CSV files in it that contain all the data you've submitted. So as a grantee admin, you'll get data for every reporting period for this particular, the 2023 grants that you have access to. That's the grantee level data and the section data and the supportive services referrals. Next, we have the reports. So there are going to be, several different kinds of reports. I think some of you have seen these before. You can kind of peruse them at your leisure. Once you've entered your section level and grantee level data, they'll kind of give you what they say on the name of the report. You're able to download those and kind of sort or filter them as you like, as you interact with them. If you have questions about those, please contact the help desk. But hopefully they'll just help you explore the data more. Lastly, for me, we have the tutorials link here at our navigation bar. This will take you to our YouTube playlist where every copy of the videos that we've done for tutorials or other webinars are posted for you to review if you need to. So I think it might be up to 1 to 2 weeks after this webinar is closed, but this recording will be posted to the YouTube page, and the tutorials link will take you right there if you ever need to view any of this material again. The last thing that we're going to mention here is going to be the dashboards. So there was no 2020 dashboard, but there is one for TP 2023. And in order to give us a better rundown and kind of showing of that dashboard, I'm going to hand it over to our colleague at Mathematica, James Troxel, to give us a little walkthrough of that data dashboard.
Thanks, Zach. Just share my screen here real quick. Okay. So, oh, sorry, I just want to make sure you can all see my screen.
Yes.
The welcome screen. Okay, great. Great. So the new system dashboards have been designed to enable users to explore visual summaries and trends from the section and grantee level data in an easy to read format. These dashboards can be accessed by selecting the cohort year from our dashboard menu up at the top of our navigation here. So the page loads and speak a little bit more broadly about how we have organized this information before I go into some of these features like the filters you see here up at the top. The dashboard visuals have been gathered into a series of tabs down here that are categorized by grantee level data, reach and dosage, and fidelity and quality measures. The grantee level data will update biannually after each reporting period, whereas the reach and dosage and fidelity and quality measures will update, data will update continuously throughout the year as section level data is uploaded to the system. All of this data, all these measures can be filtered a number of ways, including by grantee, reporting period, project officers, program models. In this case, I'm logged in as a tier 1 grantee, so my tier will be selected by default there. All the other filters will be defaulted to display all available options for those filters, so all available grantees, when applicable, all reporting periods where there's data available, so on and so forth. But if for whatever reason, say I want to select a subset of the available data for a certain specific reporting period, for example, just uncheck the January 1, 2024 reporting period. So now I'll just be looking at the July 2023 reporting period. And let's say also that, for example, rather than looking up the information for all available program models for my particular grantee, I just want to look at one of these. Let's say aim for team models. In order for that data to update below, according to these filters, I first need to select the filter button. And one thing to note is that once I've made these filters, once I've applied these filters, these will be applied across all of these tabs. So you only need to set this once in order to see the filtered data across any of these key performance indicators. I'm just going to talk about a couple of things you'll see within each of these tabs. You'll notice this applied filters list here at the top of each of these tabs. We've included this here for a couple important reasons. Maybe first and foremost is that the exact kind of filter parameters you've selected above can become obscured, and you can sort of lose some important context when looking at the information below without having that frame of reference present. Without that, you'd be left to kind of double check what you checked and unchecked up here up at top. But we've also included this when considering the possibility that some of you may find yourselves needing to take screen grabs of some of these visuals to, for example, share out with some of your stakeholders or internally with some of your team members. This will be important context to include to have remain visible within the context of the visuals below, so that you have that frame of reference. In addition to that, you'll see two main ways that we've visualized information in these tabs. So the first one being what we're calling these cards up at the top. These summarize certain pieces of information that will be determined to be higher priority based on feedback. And these will tend to be percentages, averages, totals, even the mode of certain things. For example, most common race and ethnicity, for example. In this case, we don't have any reported, but if it was reported, you'd be able to see the summarized statistics up at top, and then for further information about, for example, race and ethnicity, you can see the full breakdowns in the requisite charts below. You also see me demonstrating the tooltips, so you can get the full breakdowns of both the category names and the values for each data point within any charts, simply by hovering over the bars. And for data where this is available, we can view the trends over time. This is a new feature we've built in, so now you can now sort of see across reporting periods where data has been submitted. We can now display comparisons across the reporting periods, and so you'll see an additional bar appear for each reporting period that you selected. In this case, we only have 2 reporting periods worth of data, so we'll see 2 bars in visuals where that applies. So this is currently where we've arrived with the dashboard. At this point, we're still in the middle of considering new ways of enhancing a dashboard. We're still collecting feedback, and we'll be reaching out to some of you in the coming months and years to consider new ways to enhance the features I've demonstrated here. But I think go ahead and open up the floor to any questions or comments, feedback on what I've shown you so far.
Thank you very much for taking us through and kind of walking us through each of the features here. I am getting through with responding to all of these questions. It looks like we don't have one about the dashboard at the moment. Oh, some comments that said this is very cool and will help with CQI. Wonderful. That's what we're looking for. Beautiful. Thank you. Is there a way to export the dashboard information?
I don't want to speak to that, but that's certainly something that we are considering. We will definitely be looking to explore exactly what that could or should look like based on further feedback, rounds of feedback sessions we'll have with both project officers and grantees in the next year or so. Zach, if you want to speak to anything on any of this, feel free.
Yeah, I think that is, we want you to be able to take this information and go with it. We don't currently have like an export button for these pages yet. Taking a screenshot is one way you can do it. There's some browsers have like a print page, so you can get, instead of having to like scroll, screenshot, scroll, you can get just the whole page as like a long or tall PDF. For some of these, yeah, it might be quite tall. So, you might want to select which figures you're looking at, but then you'll want to make sure you've identified whatever filters you're using to really know what data you're actually displaying. So that's currently where we're at in terms of exporting this data. If you want like the full data dump or more particular dashboard that just has kind of like the table of numbers, the reports feature is probably what you're going to be looking for there. But at the moment, these are kind of the options that we have available.
It might be worth reiterating that the same information will be available in the reports tab and the extracts. The intent with the dashboard is really to just kind of distill that into some quick insights and key takeaways. So it's not as if you're losing information or don't have access to this without the dashboard. Just different use cases for different tools within the system.
Okay, we have another question here. If staff at my organization have kept up active credentials with the portal from previous TPP funding cycles, do we need to reauthorize them as users or will they be grandmothered in? So if you have a previous user account from a TPP 2020 grantee, that account will still exist. If you haven't logged in within 6 months, it might be deactivated. If that's the case, you'll need to contact the help desk to have it be reactivated. But as well, you'll need to be assigned to the new grant number. So if you have a new grant number in 2023, which you do, if you don't already have access to that when you log in, you won't see it listed, then you'll need to contact the help desk, CC your PO, and we'll make sure your account has that added. All right, so I'm going to swipe this back here. Oops, sorry, speed through. Okay, and here we are. So we'll keep doing questions. We have a few minutes left here. Let's make sure we get to all of these. If you have any questions, please go ahead and type them into the questions box or into the chat box. And we will do our best to make sure we view all those. Okay. The reports feature is unique to their own grantee data, correct? So as a user, and that's one thing we can mention, when you are logged in to view either the dashboard or the reports, you will only see data for the grantees for which you're associated with. So if you're a grantee admin for, grantee A, B, and C, you'll see only the data for A, B, and C. As a federal user or project officer, you'll see everyone's data, and we see everyone's data that you need to review. But for users, their grantee admins are only able to see data for the grantees that they are a grantee admin for. Okay, since this report is annual and we already put in data for the first 6 months, do we just need to put in the last 6 months of data rather than entering all the data from the past? So you're going to be entering data in this website every 6 months. The slightly confusing part is that you do need to enter 2 separate data entries for your grantee level data. So we have the, the first half of this reporting period that just ended, and then we have the second half of of the year for the 2 semi-annuals. So at the end, like right now, we would be reporting, the 6/30/2024, whatever happened in those first 6 months of the year, and then the next 6 months of the year, once those end, we'll be reporting for that reporting period. So we'll re-enter new numbers for sustainability, report as at the end of the 6-month reporting period, whatever these current measures turn out to be for the end of that 6 months. So that's how grantee data works. Every 6 months, you submit the same exact fields, but for that 6 months. For the section level data, when you select it, when you select the organizations and you go to sections, what you'll notice is that it is on a full year or annual reporting period, right? That encompasses both of those semi-annual reporting periods. What we want to encourage you to do is when you go to enter your grantee data after that first 6 months, we also want you to enter any sections that have completed implementation. So you report section data in the reporting period in which it completed. And I know that like that reporting period might not have ended yet. Maybe it's only halfway through that annual reporting period. But if you have that data, we're asking you to just go ahead and enter it. You know, the section has ended, you know the numbers, put them in there for that annual reporting period. They like to see that update at the same time as the grantee data is submitted if you have any like of that middle of the year data for completed sections. All right. Another question we have is, will we get written instructions on how to submit the performance measures? The last semi-annual report had instructions on data entry, but not the specific details on what the data were to include. So I'm sure there is a performance measures document from OMB that lists all of the data elements that you were supposed to be collecting and reporting on. When you go into the website, you know, each of those fields will hopefully have enough explanation around it. For example, if we're going to enter grantee data, you know, there's a decent amount of explanation in the paragraphs and the actual questions themselves of what data they're looking for. So those are the two places where I would point you to see what data is required and any context around it. The next question we have is, so we only report on completed sections. And that is correct, yes. So if you have a section, it is not good practice to be entering just like data about it as you go. There's no reason to create it until it is completed. When you go to enter the section data, it's not asking you to track attendance inside the website. It's only asking you for the final results, right? So what was the total for the program? Like what was the total? If there was 10 people signed up for the program, even if one of them only attended one session and etc., you know, there were 10. And then you do it by demographics. And when we go over dosage, you'll see like maybe that drags the average percent attendance down, or maybe it drags down the number of people who received at least 75% of the program. Those might be affected by that, like one person not showing up. But we definitely want to make sure that the section has ended, right? So there was a planned number of sessions, either one for some of these, or maybe like 8 if it's supposed to meet repeatedly. Sometimes just 2. Whatever the number may be, once that's done, then you have the actual attendance numbers, you know, total for the whole program. You can report that. We have a note here that there's also a guidance document on connect.gov about the performance measures that you should be able to download as well. That gives another explanation of the items. I believe we were scheduled for an hour, so we're just about running out of time, and it does seem we are running out of questions. If you do have any further questions, please make sure you can go ahead and post those in the chat or the questions module, and we'd be happy to answer those as we go. We'll give it just a few more minutes here to see if any more questions trickle in. Again, this recording will be available in just a few weeks, posted up to our YouTube playlist, as well as I think distributed by OPA, the link to that. So you'll be able to get to that through our tutorials link or through that communication once it is available with the link in there. Okay, I believe I've written a response to all of the questions in our questions module, as well as answer them out loud. We are just over time here with our presentation, and I don't have anything else to cover. So one more time, thank you all for attending and giving us your attention here. If you have any questions, we're at support@ohpmdata.net, and we'd be happy to assist. Thank you all so much and have a wonderful day.